Welcome to Finding Ourself, a podcast about the power of presence, connection, and the transformation that is only possible through touch. So if you're curious about human connection, somatic healing, or what it really means to belong, you're in the right place. Let's find ourselves together. Hello, welcome to another episode of Finding Ourselves. My name is Keeley. I am the CEO of Cuddlist, and I've been a cuddle therapist for about 10 years, and I'm here with my co-host, Michelle Renee.
Hi, everybody. I'm the director of training and also a co-owner at Cuddlist, and also been in the work about 10 years.
And today we're really excited because a person who I know has been extremely significant to both Michelle and myself, and who has been in our worlds since day one, and who we just like fangirl a lot about and adore, like on many levels, personal, professional, all the things. We're just really excited to have you here. It's Betty Martin, the infamous, the amazing, the incredible Betty Martin. Betty, would you introduce yourself for folks who don't know you?
Sure,
Who that might
thanks.
be, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, I have been here from day one. I'm not quite that old, but I'm kind of getting up there. So yes, I'm Betty Martin. I'm a mom and a grandma. I was a chiropractor for a number of years. I retired from that practice uh, in my when I was about 50 and started doing sex coaching and sex work. And that's what led me, by working with lots of people, to develop the Wheel of Consent. And so I started teaching that to other people, other professionals. That's where I met you guys. And Cuddle Party. I worked with Cuddle Party for a while. And I was a Cuddle Party facilitator. I still am. Haven't done it in a while. Um, and yeah, started teaching it to other practitioners and founded a school to do that. And we now have 6 other faculty who teach that class around the world. So basically, the wheel of consent took off rolling, and I'm trying to run along behind and keep up. It's gone all over the world. Yeah,
It's pretty
yeah. So
remarkable how
that's me.
international it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing.
I
But
love
that's the internet.
Yeah, that's true.
I love how
Yeah.
it's crossing over, not just in the touch world. Like when I did like a pro, I think it was 2022. I don't
Hmm.
remember. Weird
Something like
time is
that.
weird post COVID. And I loved how there were a few therapists in the room, and now I see a lot
Hmm.
more therapists, at least on
Yeah,
my in my world, are
yeah,
attending it. And I'm always pushing it, of course. But
yeah, yeah,
I love seeing the crossover because it's such a
yeah,
powerful tool. I think, especially if you were like a couples therapist, how
yeah,
great would it be to bring that tool into the talk therapy space?
And if you
yeah.
had
When we
to
first started
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
when we first started teaching the class was, I don't know, '07 or '08 or something like that. And it was sex workers and body workers. And once in a while, we'd have a physician or maybe a therapist or something. And now classes are, a third to a half therapists. And as you say, it's a really important tool to be able to bring to your clients. Yeah.
So if you had
Yeah.
to, for someone who has never been in this world, never been in the therapeutic world even, give a brief description of what the Wheel of Consent is, how would you do that?
The Wheel of Consent is a practice. It's also a model, but basically it's a practice of taking apart receiving and giving, so that
Mhm.
you're doing one of them at a time. You're either receiving the gift and it's all about you and what you want. And of course, you respect the other person's limits, but it's all about you. And then you have a turn, you take turns, and then you have a turn to give a gift. And now your desires don't matter. You put them on the shelf. You respect your own limits, of course, but that's for what the other person wants. And so by taking apart receiving and giving, well, the first thing that happens is that you find out what they are. It's not mushing it together and trying to give while you're receiving, so the blah, blah, blah. It's really take them apart. And so it's really a practice of taking turns for 2 or more people. And in particular, there's two different kinds of gifts that go back and forth here. One is the gift of, I'm going to do what you want. And usually, most people play it with touch, although you don't have to use touch, but in this example, we use touch. Um, in the one dynamic, I'm giving to you what you want, how to be touched the way you want. So maybe you want your head scratched, your feet rubbed, your back rubbed, whatever, and that's what I'm doing for you. And that's a gift for you. In the other dynamic, I'm again giving a gift to you, but it's a different kind of gift. And that is the gift of access to me. So you're doing to me what you want. Maybe you're playing with my hair or feeling up my legs or, exploring my feet or my face or whatever. That's for you. And the gift that I'm giving you is access to me. So in one dynamic, I'm giving you the gift of my action on you. And the other dynamic, I'm giving you the gift of me. And so that creates four different rounds, four different dynamics. And so when you draw it, you end up with 4 quadrants. Yeah.
So if I were
And
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's
Yeah.
challenging. It's challenging because when your partner, it's your turn, your partner's going to ask you, how do you want me to touch you for 3 minutes?
And deer in
I might
headlights
not
moment
know,
and
or I might like, I don't know. No one's ever asked me that before, which is a
Mhm.
very common response. Or it may feel vulnerable to ask. Of course, it's vulnerable to ask for what we want. It may be out of practice. You may not know. You may not trust that. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Whatever stuff you have about relationship, it's going to come up in one of those dynamics. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the wheel of consent is a tool because it is a practice on
Mm-hmm.
how to look at communication and relationships differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because we are looking at communication and relationships by who is doing something, whether it's the dishes or giving a back rub,
Mm-hmm.
and who is
Mm-hmm.
receiving something,
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
look and pull that apart, we get to discover things about the person that we're doing it with,
Yes.
about ourselves.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
And
reminds me, sorry,
yeah,
the 3-minute game in some ways is like the very beginning of a Cuddlist
Yeah.
session where I go, so how do you want to connect? And again, the
Yeah.
caught in the headlights kind of
Yes.
thing of
Yeah.
like,
Like,
oh
oh, I
gosh,
don't
I
know.
have to make a decision. I have to ask for
Mm-hmm.
something. And then I always have
whatever you
Betty and
want. You're the
yeah.
expert. Whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like you
totally.
I
paid
have
me
Betty
money to be here.
Yeah.
I always have Betty in my head going, slow down, slow down, slow down. You're in my head a lot, Betty. I just want to
Mhm.
Oh
acknowledge that
dear. Yeah.
I was I was I was sitting in like a demo day for a talk therapist that I'm a big fan of, and she offers these demo days for clinicians to sit in on like a couple of sessions with another clinician,
Oh,
and then we
nice.
pick it apart afterwards. So
Uh-huh.
why did you
Uh-huh.
do this and why did you do that?
Yeah.
And I noticed there was a clinician talking about a fear of making decisions, and they were able to bring it
Mm-hmm.
back to like her father and how he would like pressure her to make a decision, and then
Mm-hmm.
punish her when it wasn't the
Yeah.
right decision.
Yeah. Oh
Right.
God.
So the
Yeah.
clinician was really freezing. And I noticed in my head thinking about, I have been really hard on myself about a decision about a relationship in my life and feeling like I should move it faster. I should move it faster. And all of a sudden I heard Betty Martin in my head go, what if you slowed it down actually? What if you took it even slower than you're
Slower.
already at? Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to
Yeah.
like give you the shout out that you are, I have 2 Bettys in my life. You were not the first Betty, I will say this.
Okay.
Betty Dodson. So
Oh
you're in
yeah.
very good company.
I am in very good company. And Betty White, I
Well, yes,
consider
but I
her
didn't
good
know
too.
Betty White. I knew
I
You
didn't
I
either.
instantly meet
I
Betty
did
White.
know
I
Betty
understand who
Dodson.
that is.
yeah, but I when I reference a Betty, people will get confused which Betty I'm referencing, but
Yeah.
50% of the time it's got to be you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. She was
Right.
a real pioneer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
How so you said that from chiropractic work into this
Mhm,
work, and then the wheel of consent kind of emerged from it.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And you've even mentioned how it sort of ran away, like it's
Mhm,
running almost on its own, and you're chasing behind it,
mhm,
which I love that
mhm.
visual of it. What do you think went into this practice being born? Like, what was the primordial pieces of it in your experience?
That's a good question. Well, in my mid-40s, after divorce, I took some workshops with the Body Electric School,
Mm.
which I highly recommend, and just blew the lid off my little white picket fence existence. And I met with a few friends over the years to explore, and we kind of started where the left workshops left off. And I took some more workshops, and really that was the awakening of my own eros, my own relationship to my own eros. And I took a number of other workshops, and at one of them we played this game called the 3 minute game, which you can see on YouTube. Um, and so I didn't invent the game; it was invented by a man named Harry Faddis. I learned it at the workshop. And the 3 minute game is two people, two questions. You take turns asking each other these two questions. And the two questions are, what do you want me to do to you for 3 minutes? Well, I could think of some fun things I might want you to do to me for 3 minutes. And the second question is, what do you want to do to me for 3 minutes? Which is a very different question and a very simple question, but it's the one where most people go, what? I can't make sense of that. Um, but nevertheless, those two questions create these four dynamics. And so the first time I played it at the workshop, it was a lot of fun. And I did notice that it created these four dynamics. And when I got home, I started thinking about it and I drew the matrix of the four quadrants. And I was so excited about it. I started to tell everybody I could think of, and I was like, "Oh yeah, and this, and this," and their eyes would sort of glaze over, like, "What are you talking about?" Um, but I started using that basic format with all of my clients. I was doing experiential sex coaching at that time, and so I'd ask them, "How do you want me to touch you for a few minutes right now?" And I got this, like you guys have just uh, demonstrated so beautifully, like, oh, I don't know, deer in the headlights, whatever you want, what you're the boss, you're the expert, what do you think? And by asking those two questions to hundreds of people, it just became obvious how deeply they go into where we're stuck or where we're lost or where we're confused or where we forget that we have a choice or where we forget that we can change our mind or say yes or no. And um so it was by playing it with lots and lots of people that it became very obvious, like, oh, this is what's going on here. Um and also, one thing that I had going for me was that my hands, because I had been a chiropractor, my hands were very sensitive and I could take in a lot of information with my hands. So my hands knew how to go in and, play with your hair, feel you up or whatever. I knew how to do that. Um, and so that made it sort of more accessible to me. And then playing with a lot of people made it accessible to me. And I think if I had not had all those people to play with, I wouldn't have noticed all the things that I noticed about it.
Mm.
So it was really playing it with 100 people that developed it and showed me, oh, this goes deep here. Oh, this is where everyone's get lost. Why is that? What are they confused about?
Yeah.
So I just began to flesh it out. Um, and and then when I started teaching it to other practitioners, then, of course, people had questions. And the fact that that they were asking questions kind of made me get clear on certain points like, oh, yeah, right. That's what's confusing. Okay. How can I get this really clear? Um, so that was pretty lucky too that, yeah,
And it makes so much sense why you call it a practice then, because if it took you
it's a
100
practice.
different people to
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
to, like, really
Yeah.
get more
Yeah.
into it, that makes
Yeah.
so much sense. It's funny, sometimes I'll
Yeah.
do some of these games with clients, and then I'll suggest it again in subsequent sessions, and they're like, "Well, we've already done that one." I'm like, "Oh, but
Yeah.
I've been doing this for
Yeah.
10 years, and I
Yeah.
learn something
Yeah.
new every single time I do it."
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. 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 We
Mhm.
played it, but how would you like to be touched right now? Like,
Mhm.
that's that's a really simple question, you know?
Mhm. It could be
Yeah.
entirely
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to I trained it with Cuddlist with Madeline in 2015, the very end of
Mhm.
2015. And then I worked on my cuddle party facilitation certification right after that. And that was in Michigan at the time. So I didn't have access to a lot of cuddle parties. I would go into Chicago for Madeline's.
Mhm.
Um, but it was interesting when I came to San Diego, I got to go to Adam Pullman's cuddle
Mhm.
parties.
Mhm.
And it was there that I played the 3-minute game the first time. So it must have been like 2017, maybe before I
Mm.
ever got access to was
Mhm.
introduced to the
Mhm.
3-minute game.
Mhm.
And even somebody who'd been doing touch work in everything in Cuddlist totally has a wheel of consent flavor
Mhm.
to it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Madeline's touched, everything here, and you've touched through
Yeah.
Madeline, and,
Yeah.
um, and it was that question of the idea that how did I want to touch my partner for my pleasure? I brain exploded.
Yeah.
And I look
Yeah.
back at it now all these years later, and I'm like, wow, it's so cute that I was so confused by that. Like,
Mhm.
it's such
Mhm.
a part of my
Mhm.
everyday language now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, everybody is confused with that one. And it tends to be difficult to kind of find in yourself because I think we have this idea for the most part, which makes sense, that if I'm touching you, it's automatically for you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Automatically. That's just the way touch goes. And so if I'm touching you, making it for me, doesn't that make it kind of creepy and weird? And can I even experience that? Because for most people, as soon as they get their hands on someone, their brain goes into must give pleasure. And so it's very hard to switch gears internally and just basically what you're doing is feeling somebody up,
Mhm.
and creating a context in which, yeah, that's a welcome thing to do.
And it
Yeah.
makes each person so much better. Here's the thing that
Oh,
I
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the hardest to convey, but when clients get it or when I got it, it unlocked so many doors, right? If
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can identify when I am touching someone else because it is pleasurable to me,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
because that happens. Whether we
Yeah.
acknowledge that it is happening or not, it happens.
Yeah.
But when we
Yeah.
don't realize that it's happening, we could be with a partner or a friend and we're doing all this stuff to them because it feels good to us, but it's for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And
Right.
and they're
Yeah.
like, "Ugh, I'm just sitting here and letting all of this happen, and this is the worst," but,
Because
like, they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
my husband or my partner or whatever just, like, wants to give me back rubs and, like, I let him," or, like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that whole dynamic is, and it completely shifts it, and I also find that sometimes I'll play this game, and if I am the person who is allowing someone else to touch me for their
Mm-hmm.
enjoyment, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a flat affect on my face, they'll
Mm-hmm.
stop. They'll stop
Mm,
because they're like, "No, no, no, no. The reason why I want to do this and get enjoyment out of it is because I want the
right.
indirect pleasure of your facial
Right.
expressions and your
Right.
and whatever it is." And when
Yeah.
I stop
Yeah.
doing that, they're like,
Yeah.
"Wait, I can't do this anymore." I'm like, "But what?
Yeah.
But that's good. Let's dig. Let's find it there."
Yeah. 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 What's going on there?
But
Yeah.
could the
Which
difference
is
just
also why it's a practice
Mhm.
because you wouldn't, if you were, making out and rolling around with your honey, you would hope that they did notice if you had a flat affect.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
so that's why it's important to remember that it's a practice. It doesn't replace all of your touch in
Right.
your
And I want
life.
to say that in setting the container for that exercise, having that communicated, at least for on my side, I'm thinking
Mhm.
about it. If I didn't know what I was walking into, it's a
Mhm.
teaching moment, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
But also, like, if I knew that, like, I'm a really emotive person. If I'm trying to play with a client and keep that flatness so that they're not basing it on my performance,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Letting them know, I always let them know that I'm gonna work real
Yeah.
hard because they know
Yeah.
it's not my usual
Right.
persona.
Right.
I'm
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold my little ums and noises and, all
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna keep it in, I'm gonna hold it in. That's gonna be my practice, right? And then you're
Yeah.
gonna practice touching me in a way that feels good to you.
Mhm.
Yeah. 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 There's a big difference. What we're kind of playing with here is the difference between using this with a client who is there to learn something and using it at home with your sweetie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I do
Big
use
difference.
definitely use it at home with
Yes.
my sweetie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good.
And I think, like, what dating apps, I would like a little box that says, like, Wheel of Consent trained. Because I want to
Oh,
say, sex with people that have Wheel of Consent in their background is different than sex with people that don't.
Hands down every time.
So like,
mhm.
people talk about surrogate partner therapy, right? I'm like, we're just teaching Wheel of Consent, and we happen to have
Mhm.
different boundaries than,
Mhm.
say, we do in a Cuddlist
Yeah, I think
session.
that's pretty true.
But if we need to learn these things not in an aroused state,
Mhm.
you can start with us. and
Mhm.
and there's so
Mhm.
much to learn in our space about sexual intimacy without engaging in sexual intimacy.
Yeah.
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 Your
Yeah.
book,
Yeah.
Betty, is so brilliant. I'm gonna plug this for you. I don't care if you plug it. I'm gonna plug it for you because
Okay,
I
thank
have it
you. That I'll take it. I'll
right
take it.
next to me on the shelf. I'm grabbing it and showing it to the camera for anyone who's just listening to us. The Art of Receiving and Giving, which I love the intentionality of saying receiving first and then giving.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I in here you say very, very plainly, like, it is the practice really it is so much more accessible to start with in non-erotic places.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You really
Yeah.
gotta start there because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
adds a whole
Yeah.
different element, and some of the practice starts to break down when you add the erotic element to it, and you
Yeah.
don't get it
Yeah.
as much or
Yeah.
fast in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah. Because your habits are stronger once you get turned on.
Mhm.
Or once you approach certain body parts. You go like, "Oh, well, here's a thingamajig, and I have to figure out what to do with it," and
or
like,
Yeah.
or you become a heat-seeking missile, like,
yes,
you can't think about anything
get
else.
thing right, right.
All the blood is not in this
That's
head
right.
anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
All those
Yeah, it
survival
really does
drivers,
make a
they take right
difference.
over, and we get out of our frontal cortex and back into our back. I'm being real geeky right
Yeah,
now, y'all, but
yeah, yeah,
we
yeah,
just don't
I
have
yeah.
our
I
turn.
had a client reach out to me for sex coaching because until when I took surrogate partner therapy out of my title to quit confusing people, because they were like,
Mhm,
"What? You're not going to have sex with your clients?" No, I'm not going to do that anymore. I
mhm,
took it off my site, but I still would get SEO, loves surrogate partner, sex coach,
mhm,
all these things, right?
mhm,
So I get this request from a guy, and I was like, "I am happy to talk about sex and coach you through some scenarios while we're in platonic cuddle space. If you'd like to try
mhm,
it, please come." So he comes in, we do a couple of sessions, and we're sitting there one day, and I said, "Do you see how close we are to sex right now? You've
mhm,
managed to get me to feel safe.
mhm,
I trust you. We're having really lovely conversation. We have proximity. Clearly, we're smacked up
mhm,
against each other. It just requires a change of intention and lack of clothing." And
mhm.
maybe not even lack of clothing, depending on what your
Yeah,
kink is, right?
yeah,
But,
yeah.
like, we're that close. Like, it's
Mhm,
not that far away. And so
yeah,
it's fascinating what we can
yeah,
do in that
yeah,
In the
space.
platonic space, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I think I say in the book that 90% of what you need for great sex, you have to learn before you ever get your clothes off.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And playing the 3-minute game with 100 people is what taught me that. Because how do you want me to touch you? I have no idea. I do whatever you want. Like, well, that's a skill that's missing. It's not really about sex, but it sure makes a difference if you're gonna have sex. So, learning this skill when we're not being sexual is, is important, and all the other skills that show up when you're
Yeah.
playing the 3-minute game.
Noticing what
Yeah.
you want.
Noticing what you
Whether
want,
it's I need to
trusting it,
yeah, and
Mhm.
yeah,
acting on it.
and
Like
and yeah, and
giving yourself
communicating about
permission.
it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
I
and
clarity.
knowing that you can change your mind,
Mhm.
knowing that you can say no, knowing being able to accept the other person's no,
Mhm.
being able to have a little conversation about what might be fun for both of you, learning to slow your hands down, learning to take in information and enjoyment with your hands, and um, knowing that, learning that you have the capacity to experience pleasure and have the emotional comfort of experiencing pleasure. That's a big one for a lot of people.
Mhm.
Big one for a lot of
I
people.
want to throw in the addition of having the confidence in yourself to ask
Mhm.
for something that maybe isn't the standard
Mhm.
arc of what,
Mhm.
like, normative
Mhm.
sex looks like.
Yeah.
Like, being
And
able to
who
get
does
off that
yeah.
path and be like, "Actually, what I'd like to do today is not," like, I love playing in a space of just receiving or
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
giving and not having the
Mhm.
mutuality, which is like,
Mhm.
3-minute game, add a few minutes on
Yeah.
each
Yeah, yeah.
quadrant, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes. Add a few hours on each quadrant.
Mhm.
And for
Yeah.
also, for a platonic podcast, I love how much we're talking about sex this time. This is great. But I'll also say that the impact of this work goes all the way down to the, like, really mundane of, like, well,
Oh,
where do
yeah.
you wanna go
Yeah.
for dinner, right? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm
Yeah.
willing to go to this place if that's what you want, and
Right.
breaking it down is like, okay, well, if I'm not okay, are you willing to do that? No. Well, no doesn't mean anything about me. You don't
Right.
judge who I am as a person because I am not into going to tacos right now. You know what I
Right.
mean? And how
Right.
do we
Yeah. Yeah.
apply this to all
Yeah.
different places?
Yeah.
Because that euphemism can apply all the way down the line, right?
Yes.
Like, it's
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it helps all the
Yeah,
different kinds of conversations.
people will often say how much that it was within this practice that they learned that they could say no, or that they'd have a choice about what happens to them.
Mhm,
That's huge, and I think it applies to all of us as far as I can tell.
mhm.
It's not, oh, just those people over there, that have trouble saying no. No, it seems to be all of us
I have a
in
story.
various times and various situations. Yeah.
I have a story I wanna tell because it's super relevant, and it happened
Okay.
right after I, went to my first Like a Pro.
Uh-huh.
It was a one in, it was out in California. I think it was in Oakland.
Yeah.
And, it was the fall when I took the class, and this was a New Year's party. And I was there with my, partner at the time, and it's still my partner to this day. I don't know why I said that way. Um and we were discussing it was past midnight, and he was dead tired, and I was still really excited and wanted to stay. And we had this really lovely conversation, and he's like, "Well, I'm kind of ready to go." And I said, "I love that. I would really love to stay. Are you comfortable with that?" And we had this whole conversation, and part of it was he's like, "I'd be willing to stay for you, but it's not in my desire because
Mhm.
after the
Mhm.
workshop, I came home and I downloaded all the
Good.
information to him. I was like, "We've got to do all this stuff."
Yeah. Here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, and he's like, "Okay, I guess so," and it benefited him, but he was, drug along for the ride. But that conversation went beautifully well, and I was like,
Mhm.
I have no problem if you do wanna go home, and then either I can crash because this is our friend's house, they've got a bunch of places set up for guests to come stay and crash because they wanted to make sure everyone was
Mhm.
safe, and you can come back in the morning, or I can get a ride, like an Uber really later if we want, it's fine, I'm really comfortable doing. He's like, "Are you sure you're comfortable doing that?" "Yeah, yeah." So, had that whole conversation, it was great. One of our friends who was listening to us have that conversation came over right before he left with jaw dropped and is like, "I can't. believe you all were able to have that conversation. If that was me and my husband, that would have been a knockdown drag out fight.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to this day she has referenced that, our friend has referenced that because she's like, "I would never have known. I would have thought that he was resentful that I wasn't going home with him, and he would
Yeah.
have thought that I was pressuring and I would have thought that he was
Mhm.
pressuring me to stay," and
Mhm.
all this
Mhm.
stuff, and none of that happened. I was just
Yeah.
like, "Are you sure you're
Yeah.
comfortable?" He's like, "Yeah, I am comfortable." I'm like, "Great. I would love" and blah, blah. And so that happened right
Yeah.
after my Like a Pro in such a simple scenario, so much so that someone else was like, "I can't believe."
That's a great story. That's a great
Yeah.
story. And it's also an example of it's hard to learn to have these kinds of conversations or communicate clearly if you've never seen it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And most of us have probably never seen it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, you can read all the books you want and stuff, but if you just don't know what it looks like, yeah, how are you going to get there?
I say that about our work, at least my work. Sometimes I get to a point of conflict with a client and or I screw something up or they screw something up somewhere we need
Mhm.
some repair done.
Mhm.
I used to be afraid of that happening, and
Mhm.
then I got great wisdom of like, no, that's a great opportunity, and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. And it has been so good for clients to like get to witness and be
Mhm.
part of. That's the experiential learning part of like, no,
Mhm.
this is how we
Mhm.
can do this. And notice how your nervous system isn't responding today like it did last time, or
Yeah. Yeah.
like I remember when I started with Cuddlist, and Adam and Madeline were running the show, and I was the operations person, and I got to work with them so much, and I used to call them mom and dad, and I used to get to watch them have conflict and not destroy each other like my
Mhm.
parents did. And I would
Yeah.
be in
Right.
tears. Like,
Yeah.
look, mom and dad are fighting and they're not being mean.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't
Yeah.
have that as a model, so, yeah, we have to pick them up from maybe a New
Yeah.
Year's Eve party with Keeley, or
Yeah.
I'm sure people feel that way about me and my husband, like,
Mhm.
it's just a different it's just a whole different culture of
Mhm.
communication.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I came from a Midwest family where indirect communication or passive communication was the standard.
Mhm.
There's a
Mhm.
dynamic out there called
Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
culture versus guess culture, and that the
Right.
dynamic I grew up with
Yeah.
is a very guess culture. I
Yes,
understand why
culture.
it's born out of the idea or it's compensating for the fact that in that culture, if someone is asked a question that they have to say no to, it has been the person who asked the question was rude enough because you should never have to
Yeah.
be put into a position to ever say no. And we are not gonna
Right.
dive in to the
Yes.
psychology of that
That's
in this
right.
episode, we don't have enough
Yeah.
time. The other is being able to ask any question and being open to
Yeah.
hearing any response, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
And boy, undoing the programming of ask
Oh, yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
of guest culture
Oh,
to
yeah.
guest culture is a
Yeah.
whole mixed bag.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Keeley and I
Absolutely.
have both come a really long ways in our Midwest upbringing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I
yeah.
came from a Southern upbringing. It was real similar. Um, and the 3-minute game will teach you that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You'll get lots of practice in pausing. Your partner's going to say, "How do you want me to touch you?" And you get to take all the time you need and pause and decide you know, and you ask for some little thing that you're really just like, "Oh my gosh, is it okay to ask to have my head petted?" And you
Mhm.
decide that you're going to, and lo and behold, you get a yes, and lo and behold, it happens. And oh my gosh, this asking thing really works, and so then you start to gain some confidence in it, and you gain the skills in a low stakes situation.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
You've spent
And then
so
you
many
can take
years.
those skills with you into your life however you like.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely, and you've
yeah,
spent so
yeah.
many years focusing so beautifully on helping people understand this in a different way, in a way that's really embodied. I know we throw that word around a lot, but that's
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
grounded in some authentic relationship with your own physical self and
Mhm.
body. And I'm curious, you've spent so many years doing this and helping other people. What does this stage of your life look like after that much brilliant practice? What's coming up in Betty's world?
Well, I'm trying to retire.
Okay.
You've been saying that for a while,
I
I'm pretty
know.
sure.
I'm trying to I love to teach. I'm trying to retire from the business side of it. Um, and that's happening slowly. And podcast. I love talking to people. I love talking about this stuff. I'll probably do that till I drop. Um, I'm no longer seeing hands-on clients or personal clients. I do supervision for other practitioners because I'm basically nosy and bossy.
Mhm.
So that really, that really supervision really works for me. Um, and I have a lot of experience working with people physically and erotically and emotionally, and so I I can offer insights that other people might not be able to.
Yeah.
So I'll probably do that forever. Yeah.
Brilliant. So, in retirement, what's the thing that you're most looking forward to? What's the thing that is going to that you would want to fill and light up your world?
Um, Time to garden, more
Oh, I
time
love
to
that.
more time to camp,
Mm,
and I have a bunch of my mother's old records and notes and uh, I have a couple of boxes of things of my mother's that I would like to have time to go through that I haven't found the time yet. Old pictures and her diaries and things like that. Her notes from her church classes and you know,
mhm.
um, I'm actually looking forward to going through that. Yeah, yeah,
Mm, I love that. That's
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah,
And a
yeah.
lot of time for you. You've given so much for so many years.
Yeah, and I've received much as well, so I have no complaints. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
The number one question I get when I say, like, Betty might come sit at our table at ACE. Like, we might be sharing a table with Betty at ASECT. And by the time this comes out, it will have been past. But anytime I bring your name up in my colleague circles, I hear, is she still teaching like a pro? I hear she's not doing them anymore. And I'm like, I don't know, because she said that back in 2022 when I was with her. Like, she wasn't, this was going to be her last one. And I know that's not
Well,
been the case.
no, I that's when we started teaching training other people to offer the class, and now they're all trained up. So in
So you are
2025, I'm not
done.
teaching. I'm done with like a pro,
Okay.
but I did teach with Marcia at Esalen in the spring, and I'll teach again in the fall. And I'm considering a retreat for couples based on the Wheel of Consent. Um, so I'll do things like that as I'm inspired. Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah,
that's winning in life, right? Just
yeah,
following your
yeah.
yes and being
And
inspired.
yeah, and it's I feel lucky that this Wheel of Consent kind of dropped into my lap.
Mm,
I don't feel like I own it, although legally I do, because you have to do that. But I feel like it just belongs to the world, and my job is to hand it over to people who can hand it out.
yeah.
And that's what I'm doing. I feel very blessed to have something like this um, that yeah that means a lot to a lot of people. That seems kind of miraculous to me. Yeah,
Mm. You have a
yeah.
legacy. I
So
mean, I'm
I'm
sure
doing
you.
my best to hand it on, pass it on, and
I mean, you have children, so there's always a legacy there, and all of our work gives us different legacies. But
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just like, yeah, you've definitely left a path,
yeah.
and
Thank you.
and I know you've got great
Hopefully
people.
it's a good one.
I think you've got great
Yeah,
people that you've taught to
yeah.
teach
I
this,
Yes,
and
great people.
yeah.
Yeah, it's great people teaching it now. And I think, of the legacy bit, I think of the people who were my teachers and leaders and healers. And, the clients that we serve, then they get healthier and learn, and then they influence others, and then they influence others. And it came just right down from others through us into, it's really a web of support and influence and learning.
Who were your
Yeah.
top, like, when you just who pops in your head, like the top couple of people that when you think about, I know I have my buddies and I have my people that come
Hmm.
to mind
Hmm.
that really influenced me. Who are the people that influenced you?
Gonna ask the same thing. I'm so glad you asked it.
Mm. Well, a person who influenced me in as far as my healing work in chiropractic days was Donald Epstein, a chiropractor
Mm,
who developed and taught network chiropractic. I learned a lot from him and his team. And in the uh, in the working with people emotionally and psychologically, I think Charlie Kreiner, who was a one of the teachers for co-counseling,
mm.
reevaluation counseling all those years. Um, and what's the other? I forgot the gal, her name. I forgot her name. It was a long time ago. Um, but that's been a really big influence. And co-counseling is basically taking turns listening to each other in ways that are useful. And it's another form of receiving and giving and taking turns.
Mhm.
And I think because I had been already doing that for 30 years when I started discovering the wheel of consent, that was one thing that easily made sense to me. Oh, I get it. We're taking turns, no problem. Whereas for a lot of people, taking turns felt kind of odd and they didn't like it. But for me, it was like second nature. So I knew when it was my turn, it was really my turn. I knew how to make use of my turn. And that came from many years of co-counseling. And that also taught me what I know about the kind of inner workings of people and why we do what we do and where we get stuck and um, those kinds of what I know about people largely comes from there. And being able to be present with people's difficult feelings. And I have complete confidence that people will come out the other side. Um, and then erotically, Joseph Kramer, who invented the body electric school, that was a big factor. Carol Lee, the Scarlet Harlot, was a big inspiration to me. Annie Sprinkle was a big inspiration to me.
See, now you're in the names that I know. And I'm
Hmm.
like, uh-huh,
Hmm.
uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Joseph Kramer reached out to me when I started Soft Cock Week,
Oh,
a little
yeah,
project that I had running for a few years, and now
yeah,
it's changing
yeah,
names. But when he reached out to me, I was like, oh my gosh, like how
yeah.
wild is the
He's the
internet that
granddaddy.
these things get
Yeah,
passed
yeah,
around? It's like there's
yeah,
no 6 degrees of separation
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Annie was a big inspiration to me, and Carol Lee and Carol. I forgot it. Carol. She had the San Francisco Sex
Yeah,
Institute.
it's right at the
Yeah,
top of my
yeah, yeah.
tongue here.
But they were particularly inspiring to me because they were mature women
Mm.
who were totally out there in front about sex and sexuality.
Carol Queen.
Carol Queen, thank you.
Yep.
They were totally out front about sex and sexuality, and I was still sort of getting over my white picket fence upbringing, and so that was a great example for me to see that.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
It's we talk about like what have we learned from our work?
Hmm.
And I used to joke, and I think Madeline hated this compliment that I gave her, but doing this work, I always said made me a better slut, and that I knew how to set the container.
Hell yeah.
and be all in it. And then when the container was closed, the container was
Yeah.
closed, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
hell yeah. That's really true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing to learn.
I don't think Madeline wanted to take the credit for that, but it was fun to kind of to lay
Yeah.
that out there.
Yeah.
I don't want to preemptively ask this question, but it just kind of rolled into here. But like, what have you learned about yourself in your work? Like, what's the like some of the big loudest
Yeah.
things that come forward first?
Well, that what I learned, I mean, you asked me that question before, and I just burst out laughing because basically I learned that I'm a whore,
Yes!
and and that's a
I love
word
that.
that I use with a great deal of honor and respect and affection. It's a
Mhm.
reclaimed word, um, and to me, it means somebody who's willing to enter into an erotic experience with someone. And the way I was using it, the way many people use it, is as a guide. And uh, yeah, supporting people through those tender places and emotional places. And yeah, I found out that I really loved that work. And I really loved guiding people and holding people and supporting people and in that realm, which not very many people are willing to do, of course.
Mhm.
And so it's a calling. It's also um, yeah, it's a calling, and um, it was doing this work. Uh, so I started my coaching practice and did that for a few years. All the sessions were clothed, and we were playing the 3-minute game and stuff. And after a few years of that, I realized, okay, I with clients for whom it would be useful, which is not everybody, with clients for whom it would be useful, I want uh, to go into more erotic space. I want to get sexier. And so then that's when I expanded my practice. And I actually had two practices. One is Betty Martin, and the other is Beth Morgan,
Mm.
who charge a lot more money.
Yes.
I would hope
Yeah,
so. What do you
yeah, yeah.
say to the people who clutch their pearls at your empowering statement of like, I learned that I am a whore and that this is important to me? What do you say to the people who clutch their pearls?
Um, it's totally understandable because throughout human history, we've had a very mixed relationship with sex and with sexuality and with people who do sex with other people for money. Of course it's a big bugaboo, and especially if you consider that sex belongs one place and one place only. That's between a male person and a female person, and they have to be married. That's the only time you can have sex. Well, I don't fit in there. Um, so if if that's your idea of where sex belongs, then of course it's going to be just it sounds terrible.
Mhm.
I I I've I thought this the other day. I was talking to somebody. Um, if you grew up in a culture in which eating food was very, very intimate, and you only ate food, only cooked and ate food with people that you were totally bonded to. So maybe one or two people in your life you would actually eat in front of. So this is the culture in which food is just very, very, very private. And then you come to our country and you see people in restaurants. What are you going to do with that? It's like, what? How can that be? Like, wow, how can they stand it? And then you see a person who's a chef and he's cooking for 100 people. Like, that's going to blow your mind. And it's of the because you have attached a meaning to food that is not inherent in the food. It's
Mhm.
a meaning that you've learned from your culture, which is food only happens between people who are very, very close. And now you come to culture where food happens, everybody, you know,
And
you're
you're
having
pa
picnics and
and you're
stuff, so
paying someone to cook
and you're
for
paying
you.
someone to
Mhm.
cook for you. How outrageous is that?
I mean, that's what
You
we
know?
deal with in our
Yeah,
work, as
Yeah.
yeah,
even in platonic touch. Why would I pay somebody to give me, affection
yeah,
and access to
yeah,
touch? It's like it's just another professional
yes,
service, just
yes,
like
absolutely.
I had
sex
Yeah,
someone
work, professional
yesterday
service.
in a consultation with me. So they've sought me out. We're in a consultation that they've paid for. And during that consultation, two things happened, which is funny for this conversation. One, I asked them what their interest in the session would be, what they want to get out of it, if they left thinking, oh, that was so worthwhile. And I asked that question probably four different ways. Because each time the response to that question was, as long as you are comfortable and having a good time, that's what I want. To me, the person they're trying to
yeah,
pay money to, as
right,
long as you are having a
right.
good time,
Yeah,
that's the only thing
yeah,
I want. As long as you are really into it. Me? So you're paying me to have it. So I asked 4 different times, and at
right.
the near the end of the call, we were talking about some logistic pieces, and they're like, "Hmm, I looked at your rates again, and it's so hard for me to get around paying for a cuddle." And I'm like, "Yeah, how wild is that?" And yet it sounds like in our earlier discussion, when we were talking about you really focusing back on what I might enjoy, it sounds like in most of your world, you are giving to other people. You're taking care of
Mhm,
everyone else in your world. And
mhm,
when
mhm.
you do have the opportunity, it doesn't end up feeling fulfilling because you
Yeah,
continue to
right,
keep
you're
giving
right.
and you're focusing on them. So you're not getting that anywhere else. And in this space, the
Yeah,
reason why I asked that 4 different times is because it is a carved out place for you to actually fully receive
yes,
and never have to worry about whether or not I am okay. Because my job, the thing you're paying me for, is to make sure that I am
yeah,
comfortable in communicating, and so that
yeah,
this experience can be so rich. I said,
yeah,
for many, many I totally understand where you're coming from. For many, many, many years, people absolutely balked at the idea of any kind of talk therapy because why would I
sure.
pay someone to chat?
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's so natural to fall into that. Everything is for everybody else. Give, 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 give.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
on the one hand, you do want to, if you're an adult, you do want to be able to give and serve and help other people. Of course you do, I hope. And on the other hand, if you're stuck there and that's your only option, that's a problem.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and in society, we've, put
yeah.
this, what does it mean to be a good mom? Or what does it mean to be
Mhm,
a good wife? Or,
mhm,
socialized female in this society
mhm.
is,
Yeah,
it's an
yeah,
uphill climb to find your autonomy
yeah,
and be empowered. And
yeah.
it's a process that many of us don't take on until we have our first divorce. As I
Mhm.
as I can say I did.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
I wanna say
yeah.
this popped in my head when you were talking about the word whore. Last fall, I got to see Charlotte Hathaway's, Naked at My Age,
Ah, oh, great.
and I was in tears because it made me miss being a whore. Like,
Mm,
it made it brought back some of the most wonderful moments of doing sex
mhm,
work, and it was such
mhm.
a for anybody, if she ever takes it out on the road again, it is
Oh,
a
it's
story
fabulous.
of a woman getting into sex work after 50, and
Yeah,
it was such a wonderful gift
yeah,
to be able to
yeah,
watch that.
yeah.
I love that
I
my
became a
world is
whore at 54. It's a it's a great little show.
It's a good
Yeah.
show.
I love that my world is filled with folks who find that access to this really beautiful world in this space of supporting people through their eroticism and their
Mhm,
sexuality,
mhm,
and do it with expertise and do it with this beautiful guide. I love being around it so much, and because so many I resonate with it so much, I keep asking myself over and over and over again, well, do I want to do that? Do I want to do that? And it's one of those things. I tried to do cosplay professionally for a little while and I started
mhm.
hating it because as soon as I got money
Yeah,
for this thing that really
yeah.
loved and had so much fun in, it stopped
Yeah,
being fun. And I'm like, "No,
yeah,
I'm not risking
totally.
that with sex."
Yeah, yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
be fully transparent here and say I am in perimenopause. My sex has changed. It
Mm.
is not I'm even more responsive desire than I've ever been in my life. And let me tell you, the exchange of money as part of that makes me a bigger yes to show up
Yeah.
for all the work that it takes for me to have a good time during sex. Like, call me a money sexual, but I tell you what, when I think about what do I get out of this? Yeah, orgasms are great and all, but my brain takes so long to get into the desire space. I have to get aroused first. You throw some extra money in that, and I can
Yeah.
work that hard. I can work that hard and feel like the exchange rate is much more equal.
And see, for me, there's no amount of money that is gonna make up for someone not needing me and actually being an
Yeah,
attentive lover. Like,
yeah,
there's no amount of money that's gonna make
yeah,
up for you
yeah,
being really bad at this.
But what if you could
yeah.
have both? And I don't know if that's possible. I just want to say I have a friend, I'm not going to name names. She is also like a pro grad, and we've taken a lot of the same
Mhm.
trainings. And she is an escort. And she sends me texts sometimes where she is like, "Oh my God, I just had the best sex. I can't believe I get paid to do this." And I'm like,
Mm,
I love you. And if ever I have to write your memorial, is it okay if I out you for this? Because this is what I love about you, is that you are doing the sex work thing right.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, there's
also,
a certain kind of generosity that you have to have.
Mhm.
yeah.
And
I
I want to acknowledge that we're describing sex work done by people who can afford to say no
Yes.
to certain
absolutely.
clients,
Yes.
Yeah.
and not everyone has that option.
And I want
There
to
are
also
people who are
acknowledge,
really, really struggling and using sex work to support themselves and feed their children,
Mhm.
and it's a different story.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
also different when you're doing sex work for entertainment purposes, like not as a sex worker, but your
Mhm,
clients are there more for just the
mhm,
experience entertainment
mhm.
compared to doing it from the side of being a teacher and
Mhm.
like surrogate partner work.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
you come at it in such a very
Yeah.
different way. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I just like people that follow like really good boundaries, and on the other
Mhm.
side of that is like having a really lovely time and getting paid
Mhm.
for it is
Mhm.
Mhm.
winning.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
big world. There's lots of different facets of it, and I appreciate us acknowledging that we cannot cover the vastness of the different experiences in that
Mhm.
world in
Mhm.
this time.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I've always been
And
I want to give a shout out to Cuddlist, because when we first started, the company as a whole was very like, we can't come close to sex work because we'll get pulled in,
mhm.
and assumptions will be made and whatnot.
No one
Mhm.
will
And
understand the difference if we even talk about
no.
it. Yeah.
And honestly,
Mhm.
I left operations to be able to build my surrogate partner practice better because I was such a face for cuddlists. I didn't want to muddy it
Mm.
by
Yeah.
also being
Yeah.
an out sex worker. And
Right.
then when I came back, when Madeline asked if I would be the director of training as an out sex worker, I was like, what a full circle moment for our industry, for our
Wow. Yeah.
company, to put
Yeah.
me in a top leadership spot
Mhm.
even as an out sex worker. It was
Mhm.
just such
Yeah.
a what a great moment for, I
Yeah.
think, touch work
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah. It's been some cultural shifts.
Mhm.
And I want to say the same thing is true of being a barista or an accountant.
Mhm.
You may hate your work, you may love your work,
Mhm.
you may be tired of your work, you may be working just to feed the kids. It may be an awful situation, it may be a great situation.
Mhm.
This is not unique to sex work.
No.
No,
So get over that if you think it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
absolutely. The
Yeah.
difference is that if you get assaulted on your job as a barista, you can go to the
You
police.
can, that's true.
Mhm.
That's
You know
true.
what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we got to
Yeah.
decrim here.
Mhm.
I'll
Yeah.
put that in our ethos. Not that
So
it's new.
you are both working with Cuddle. Oh, you're co-owners of Cuddlist now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're
Oh,
like
great.
business married now, right?
Yeah, it's
Like
really great.
Wow, that is great.
Yeah.
I just yeah, I recommend you guys all the time, and yeah.
my
Oh my
husband
god, Cody
fantasi
recommends me!
my husband is fantasizing about me and Keeley having a ceremony where we're in power suits.
Yeah, right.
And then at our reception, we switch into onesies, like, for
Oh,
the full
I love
spectrum.
I love this.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love it.
How very
yeah.
us.
Yeah, yeah, very good.
I can't wait to be at conference with you, Betty, because you'll get
Yeah,
to
yeah,
see
it'll
the
be fun.
full
See you in a couple of weeks, a
see
few
the
weeks.
full
Yeah.
the full conference. Keeley is quite stunning.
I'll bring all of my 12 onesies. You're welcome to borrow one because we're gonna have a speakeasy onesie night. And
Oh, great.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
I
Second annual,
Mhm.
unofficial. It's not an official
Ah,
ASECT event, and they talked to me about maybe making it an official ASECT event in a couple years, and I was, like, really honored. Ego, like, showed up and was like, "Yeah, absolutely,"
yeah,
and then I thought about it, that it's not gonna be fun anymore if it's ASECT
yeah,
sponsored, so
Mhm.
yeah.
it'll stay an unofficial
Until and unless
event.
we wanna change that, but yeah, right now it's fun for it to be kind of like a know the password to get in. That's hyperbole.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyone can get in.
To to the cuddle to the cuddle pile.
Yeah, yeah. It's super and it's
Yeah.
also really funny to be in that kind of a space, the edgy one, because of how wholesome our stuff
Right.
is. It's so funny. I will say
And
yeah, go ahead.
this is a conference of sex educators and therapists, and
Mhm.
the cuddling is the edgy one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, we're edgy everywhere,
I
yeah,
honestly,
know.
like
yeah.
At regular, like, psychotherapy conferences that don't necessarily have the color of it's sex education, that we're
Mhm.
still the edgy ones over, like, we'll have a psychedelics booth right next to us, fully illegal, right? Like, the psychedelic work is
Right.
still it's fully illegal, but everyone's flocking there, and they get over to us and like, "Yes, we hug our clients," and the like, the giant gasp, and, like
Right.
so we're gonna get
Yeah.
T-shirts. I'm putting this into the world to manifest it, cuddling, edgier than psychedelics.
I'll do it. I'll
Mhm,
have
Yeah.
those printed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
It's so
Well, it's
funny.
understandable, because touch has been used in bad ways forever.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so it's totally natural to be kind of weirded out about touch.
Mhm.
Especially in this culture, we tend to conflate touch and sex, and we think,
Right.
well, if there's touch happening, sex is right around the corner. And you know, learning to take those two apart is, I think, one of the real gifts of both Cuddlist and Cuddle Party
Mhm.
Mhm.
and other cuddle groups, that
Yeah.
finding out that cuddling is possible and it's not sexy. Holy cow, that's a revelation, and a huge one.
Mhm.
Hugely important.
And
Yeah.
by the comment section on my YouTube every day, there are people who think that it is impossible despite the lived
Yeah.
experience that
Yeah.
we all have.
That
And and
was
and and you never know it's possible until you
Mhm.
experience it, and then you
Mhm.
find out, "Oh my gosh, this is
Mhm.
a whole different thing."
Blows your whole mind.
I
Yeah.
I am so fortunate, and I don't know what the different things that make this happen. But I remember in intake calls years and years ago getting clients that would say, "I don't know if I can cuddle you and not have sex with you," and I was just so like, What are you saying? You have no self control?"
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure, like, it's understandable, like, I did work with an older gentleman in surrogate partner therapy where I wanted to do some cuddling, and he was like, "I don't think I can cuddle you and not have sex with you." And I was like, "It's okay to want things and not take action on them." And the therapist backed me up. We had a cuddle session as part of our work, and he was like, "Oh, it was so great," because he never experienced intimacy in that
Yeah.
form, right? And
Yeah.
he was like, "I
Yeah.
got to put little kisses on her cheeks," and like he was in
Yeah.
his 80s, and this was like a brand new
Oh.
experience for him.
Well,
That's
yeah.
so much more
Yeah.
appreciated than the 20 or 30 something year old that says
Mhm.
to me, "I don't know if I could do that." And I'm like, "So I shouldn't allow you in my space is what you're telling me because you're not safe." And I
Yeah.
thankfully don't have those
Yeah.
comments
Yeah.
anymore, but
Yeah.
it's out there.
Yeah. I'd want to ask, so what you're saying, I think, is that you would get turned on,
Yeah, that's okay.
and that's
Mhm.
a problem? Like,
Yeah.
why is that a problem?
I
Yeah.
think Keely, your number one video on your YouTube channel, and I know mine is all about erections.
Yep,
Mhm.
every time, and I'll
Sure.
repost it every couple years, and
Yeah.
it is always the number and it often is a very short video. It's really, really very basic, pretty short,
Mhm.
and I say, "The number one question I always get asked is what happens if I have an erection?" And first and foremost, great. let's celebrate that your body's working in a way that it's designed to
Yeah.
work. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
And
what?
yeah. And then we go into a little bit of explanation of like this really doesn't have to be a anxiety producing situation. This does not
Mhm.
have to be something that anyone feels any shame about. And
Mhm.
also, we're not going to then be beholden, or then now our agency and choice isn't taken away from what then happens, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I
And I imagine for a lot of people, that's a huge learning right there.
yes.
But they
Yeah.
also shouldn't be in long-term relationships if they can't figure out how to have an erection and not act on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, let this be a practice space of imagine what
Yeah.
your partner would feel like if every time you got an erection, they had to drop what they're doing and
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
service you.
that's what the really, sad, uncomfortable, and real truth is that that's vastly more,
Mhm.
common, and there are
Mhm.
pretty rough statistics backing that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is one of the reasons why our work can be so revolutionary and kind of like boots on the ground
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
everything,
Mhm.
as overused as it is in probably good context, but like the Me Too movement and everything, we are
Yeah.
front lines of helping change and shift those perceptions
Yeah.
for the benefit of everyone.
Here's the
Yes.
area I want to
Hallelujah.
here's
Mhm.
the area I want to expand in. I want to expand in working with single clients that are identify with out of control sexual behavior. Because
Mm.
I have a theory, and I'm putting this here so it goes out in the universe and somebody can come
Mhm.
knock on my door and say, let's play with this. My theory is that part of the out of control sexual behavior is not having other regulatory um, uh, things in their life that regulate their nervous system, and so they're using sex to
Mhm.
regulate. And if we could introduce them to other kinds of connection,
Mhm.
if their toolbox could be expanded. That's my I haven't taken any out of control sexual behavior clients, but I would like to. I want to
Mhm.
play in that world.
Mhm.
It was so
Not afraid of it.
It was so
Yeah.
interesting being in a space where there are two people in one of the conferences that we were at, and one booth was the sex addiction folks. They ran a center for
Mm.
sex addiction. They really
Mhm.
were proponents of that. And across from them was a sex education booth,
Mhm.
and promoting sex therapists and different resources. And it was so interesting to see where there was middle ground and where there was tension between because you
Mm.
ask a lot of people who do sex education and they'll say sex addiction doesn't exist. It
Yeah.
is simply framing it that way is a product of some like old morality stories and
Mhm.
old
Mhm.
paradigms from that culture. And the sex addiction folks are like, but this compulsion that for people in it feels impossible to overcome is
Mhm.
ruining and negatively impacting so much of their lives, and the impact that it is having is
Mhm.
similar,
Mhm.
almost identical to the impact that alcohol addiction will have on their lives. So
Yeah. Yeah.
where is the
Yeah.
delineation benefit here? And it's so
Yeah.
interesting to see where they came together because they're
Yeah,
like,
Mhm.
the difference is in
Interesting.
treatment
Yeah.
plans. That's the
right,
difference,
Yeah.
right? One
Yeah.
is at least historically, the sex addiction model has been incredibly sex negative.
right.
Mhm.
It's very
Yeah.
it has that abstinence focus to it
Yeah.
in some
Yeah.
ways, and that's just doesn't seem sustainable. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I'm a
my
fan of harm reduction models in all recovery spaces anyway, but yeah, it's interesting.
I also liked at
Hmm.
that same conference, we were kind of kitty corner from a place that was teaching about gaslighting, and I thought that was kind of great because we're kind of the opposite of that. I think we're the anecdote because I was gaslit a lot in my
Mm,
first marriage, and I will say that I don't know that I could be gaslit so much anymore. I feel like I have such
mm,
a sense of self.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I resonate with that.
Yeah.
I have a selfish curiosity question. Betty, what are you most looking forward to at a conference space? Like, what's the thing that you want to find out or experience, or what are you most curious about?
Um, well, besides hanging out with you guys,
Yeah,
uh,
besides that.
I haven't been to a conference in a long, long time. And I'm looking forward to sort of being in the milieu and seeing hearing what people are thinking and seeing what's new in this world. And
Mm.
um, yeah, I'm looking forward to just talking to people and finding out where people are at these days.
The
Yeah.
next ASECT is in Puerto Rico,
What?
Oh.
buddy. Yeah, Keeley, that's why we put the date on the calendar to work on our
Oh, yeah, yeah,
abstract
yeah, that's right.
proposal.
We gotta go.
So
Yeah.
we have a reason to go to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
But I do think it's an interesting marriage. Our work is kind of like the space where people get to come in and get a little taste of Wheel of Consent.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it would be interesting to do some kind of
Mhm.
co-presentation. It would be
Mhm.
interesting. And I also have a really big desire to get you to Psych Networker in DC
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
want to introduce you to Zach Taylor, the guy that runs it, because I have
Mhm.
a fantasy of you being put on stage in front of every keynote address for 10 minutes of like a quick consent education
Yes.
space
Cool.
because therapists
Yeah.
need consent education
Well,
so
everybody
much.
does. Yeah.
But I don't think they would self-identify or self-acknowledge that they
Mm.
do. And so I've
Mm.
told Zach, I'm like, I want to bring in Betty. Not that I can create the space
Well, good. Let's
myself,
let's do that
but
next time.
I am like, if I can get Betty right in front of him, I'll be like, this is the person. This is
Mhm.
the person. I'm
I
trying.
would be honored. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Ooh, another question to write down, Michelle, is how would you optimize Wheel of Consent work in a client-led container
How?
instead of
As opposed to what?
well, as opposed to being like, okay, we're going to do this activity next, and we're going to do these exercises. That's kind
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
prescriptive, right? It's
Mhm.
directing and leading and
Mhm.
creating an experience for our client, right? But if it's client led, the initial and impulses the initiation is what I'm looking for, is
Mhm.
from the client first, and then we can respond with things. But yeah, so
I think that's going in our retreat in November.
ooh, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Okay, good.
basically, all of these questions that you're asking are what we talk about in Like a Pro,
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because Like a Pro is the Wheel of Consent for professionals,
Mhm.
and those are exactly the questions that we go for in there.
Mhm.
And I think we answer them very well, um, because it is, you know, as we referred back to earlier, it's a different thing playing the 3-minute game with your sweetie or your practice buddy,
Mhm.
and then using it in a client session. You're not exactly playing the 3-minute game, but it, depending on what kind of practice you're doing, you might.
Mhm.
But learning how to create options that they can choose from, and knowing what's going to be useful for them and not useful for them. And yeah,
Mhm.
that's where we talk about that stuff
I have
in
to
Like a
say,
Pro.
Like a Pro was the first workshop I went to or training I went to that I didn't feel like a newbie. Like I
Mm,
got to sit on the last day when you put us into different groups, and I got to sit in my group, and I was like, oh, I'm an elder in this
mm,
Mhm.
space that I
yeah,
actually have experience now.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
was such a transformation for my self-confidence
Mm,
going through Like a Pro. Like it changed my whole practice.
yeah,
Mm.
Yeah.
beautiful.
What a perfect transition into Betty. What are the things that people can do? Where can they find all of your projects? Give us the rundown of all the things.
Well, wheelofconsent.org tells you all the things about the wheel and has the free videos and all that, and talks about the book and talks about me a little bit. Yep. And there's the book, The Art of Receiving Giving,
I'm holding it up for those
um,
listening.
which is on that website, wheelofconsent.org. Schoolofconsent.org is where all the stuff is happening. So that's where there's workshops all over the world by facilitators that we have trained. Um, those are usually 2 to 3 day workshops just for regular people on the Wheel of Consent. And we also offer this 5 day professional training that's called Like a Pro, which we've been talking about. That's on there. Um, yeah, and we're training and certifying more people to teach the real consent workshop. Yeah.
Just finished it and it was phenomenal. I just finished my real
Mm,
consent certification.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I enjoyed the heck out of this conversation. I know it'll be this is like getting me so pumped for June and for the conference that we're going to, because I know it'll be more of this stuff and more silly and more giggles and more brilliance. So thank you so
Yeah,
much for
thank you.
being here. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, and it's great to hang out with you. Yeah.
Very much. You graced all the people who listen and watch the podcast with a lot of wonderful things. And for everyone at home who's listening or wherever you are, thank you for joining us and thanks for letting us come into your world. And as always, how we always end, big hugs if you want them.
Yay. Love the hugs. All the hugs.